Welcome to the Elemental Lifestyle Podcast. I'm very excited to share this episode we recorded with David about the dark masculine. We speak of the places of gentleness and the power of that. This was recorded in 2021 on 11/11, so just celebrating the places of how there is no time and we can receive the wisdom and the love from this podcast. I am Katrina. I am a communication and intimacy coach and many other things as well. I have a new podcast coming out, Love the Destroyer. This is going to be a really beautiful place of 10-minute inspirational places of understanding our capacity to destroy and how we are welcoming in that place of understanding what that means in our own life. This podcast has been around for almost 4 years, and it has been an act of love. We're almost at 100 episodes. I will continue to allow this place of connection and conversation, and I also encourage you to also subscribe to the podcast, Love the Destroyer. And you can subscribe to that down in the link below. So with no more wait, I welcome my guest, David, back to the podcast. If you missed the previous one, please go back to that one. It's about the protector and how the dark masculine is that place of protection. And today we're going to dive into the gentleness that's available to all of us with this space. So thank you for everything and the support of the podcast. Share with your friends. Let this be a place of inspiration and support for us all. And with that, let's start the interview.
Today is a beautiful day. It's 11/11 here in my neck of the woods, but David, you join us again for a fantastic conversation following up on the dark masculine when we talked about the authentic protector. So welcome back. I'm so excited for your presence here today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited for the conversation today. It'll be interesting to see where we go. And we touched base just before we jumped on yesterday, and the flavor that's coming through, I'm really excited to explore it because it's not something that I've heard discussed or that we've heard discussed about the dark masculine.
Yeah, I am, both you and I felt it very strongly. So I love that resonance that I was like, are you in my head? Like,
yeah.
What? Like, what is going on? So what do you, what is most alive for you right now in this place of the topic of conversation with the dark masculine? What are you sensing and picking up on that is coming through pretty loudly for you?
Yeah, so even as I sit here now, I really felt it just as we were starting to drop into the call, just this, like the energy of gentleness, the energy of really deep, receptive connection with ourselves. First and foremost, really like that being a place that we just land in, that we connect in, that gentleness. Yeah, because it's like, yeah, dark masculine is often spoken about as a really fierce energy, really fierce or penetrative energy, maybe associated with like the warrior archetype. And there's also in the healthy manifestation, there's an incredibly deep receptivity. That's the core. It's receptivity. It's being able to feel. It's such a deep connection with the body and the senses, the emotions. Yeah.
You just said something so important. The senses. What is the ache for us, right? For those of you who have read the the Bhagavad Gita. There's the place that's really powerful, where the senses can lead, right? But it's not that we get to have the reins on them, right? That we get to have them be in our life and they can be connected to our intuition. But you said senses. And so what is that? Like when we think of like, you said there's the suppleness and supple and gentle, and you said another word as well
Maybe
yesterday.
soft. Was it
Soft.
soft? Yeah.
It was soft. Okay. Ooh, I love this. So when we're inviting in that place of our senses to be present, right? Be present. We tend to push that away a lot, right? We're busy, we're doing things, and we get rigid. I think there's a rigidity that happens for a lot of us as we get
100%.
into adulthood. So, oh my God, the soft, supple, dark masculine. What are we even like? Really? There is something really alive here.
Yeah, and I was just feeling the sense of like for those that are listening right now, the transmission of the softness is like, even in how we're speaking, the cadence of how we're speaking right now is really different to last time. It's really different. There is this deep softness and gentleness. When that's not there, when there's rigidity there, that's when like the unhealthy aspects of the dark masculine come through. That's where it's like the energies that aren't consensual come through in relating, that come very forceful.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And that's where like a lot of abandonment and rejection can happen, right? When you say, and even, when you say non-consensual, I mean, we're talking about places of boundaries, abuse. We're talking about rape. We're talking about places of sexual trauma.
Emotional abuse as well, physical abuse, just obviously sexual abuse is a really strong one, but one that's often kind of jumped over is the impact of emotional abuse. That might even be someone just kind of penetrating to your space with their own thoughts and opinions, rather than being receptive to where you are and kind of calibrating with that. In my experience, the unhealthy dark masculine can be very, very forceful and penetrating with opinions. If they see someone that's maybe in emotion or having a hard time or is looking for some form of advice, where healthy dark masculine still has that ability to penetrate down through into like the truth, but it calibrates. It's almost like foreplay, almost like the difference between non-foreplay and having foreplay. It's like that cadence, and that comes from receptivity, that comes from inner gentleness.
Yes. Okay. When we sink into that gentleness, right? And I do want to share this because this is what's coming through. There's a piece here. It was, oh my God, I can't believe it was 2 years ago when I was in Greece, and I felt this place of vulnerability, like this ache to be so gentle and so soft, right? And I didn't know how to do that. I'd forgotten how to be really soft and gentle.
And it's so interesting because like the relationship between the dark masculine and gentleness and softness, like they're so intertwined. Because if we just relax into gentleness and softness, but we don't have the ability to, like, we don't have that inner connection with our power and our strength and our ability to put in boundaries, that's when yeah, like things can come into our space and maybe we get walked all over, as an example, or yeah, there's some form of a sort of abuse. It's like basically throwing the doors open with no keeper there and no ability to close them to be able to say yes or no. But yeah, the relationship are intertwined. So it's like deepening in the dark masculine helps you to be more gentle and to soften. And gentle, when you step more into a gentle space and soften, and you have the awareness of the dark masculine, it can also strengthen the dark masculine. It can come through in a more healthy, calibrated way as well. Like both of them are very intertwined.
I'm feeling this so deeply. I know that others are connecting to this. This is a very gentle space here. There's that feeling. What I'm picking up on is, okay, so if I'm going into that gentle space, right? That gentleness, that like love for myself and the love for others. There was a few months when I went into that softness, and that's when I experienced some physical abuse. I also experienced some places of sexual trauma. So I think I wanted it so desperately, that softness and that gentleness, yet I wasn't rooted into that place of really accepting the dark masculine. I think that's because the protector, right? Like, and it was beautiful. I got to understand a lot more of some of the subconscious and the things that I was so that's what I'm saying. I think that do you feel that there's a fear for people to have that softness and gentleness and that suppleness, because then, oh, well, they're just gonna feel that feeling of abuse or trauma or things coming in, right? Because you're letting the guard.
Yeah, or not feeling safe as well. Yeah, like it can be it can feel dangerous to soften and to relax. And like you were saying, it's like we do have a craving for that. There is a craving within us to soften. Like we do live like relatively disconnected lives compared to years and years ago, like in terms of nature as well. Like we're in, even just like this can be a conversation about stress as well. Like the stress that we hold in our bodies from the lives that we live. It's like there's not gentleness, there's not suppleness. We hold tension, we hold points of tightness and constriction. Yeah. And that's also what happens when we're unable to say no powerfully, or we're unable to say yes powerfully, when we're not able to put in those boundaries.
Okay, so there's a couple things that I'm picking up on. You mentioned the lion, right? The place of the lion. I mean, when you see animals in their most beautiful form, they are supple, they're fluid, they're moving, they're relaxed, but yet they are feared because they have this power, right? They know their power, they know their place, and they know when to take action.
Absolutely. And even for humans as well, like quite a few of my friends are into like martial arts and like into Muay Thai or fighting or whatever, boxing. And we have conversations with each other about the like a great fighter isn't hard and rigid. He's actually very soft, and that's where the speed can come from. That's where the precision, that's where the power comes from. Obviously there's probably not too many people that are like, oh, I want to improve my fighting skills, that are listening to this, but it's like a way of flowing in the world. It's like, even I'm moving through a process at the moment called the Embodied I Ching. And for those that don't know, the I Ching is a book that's at least 5,000 years old, and it's one of the most spiritual texts in China. And yeah, there's like the sense of flow as well. It's like redirecting energy. It's not hard and rigid. It's like also the element of water there as well, flowing. There's a lot of
But
power that comes from that softness, and that inner suppleness. We're also not wasting energy on being. It takes a lot of energy to be tight and rigid, and like when stress is running or whatever. Yeah, it takes a lot of energy out of the body.
absolutely, it's exhausting for the body to be in that rigid state. I mean, that's where like yoga or places of relaxation for people who are really managing overwhelm, stress, anxiety are super important for the body to just relax. So this is like what's coming through here is there's a couple of things that I'm picking up on with the rigidity. So when we're in intimacy, when we're in a connection with our partner, um, the tendency, and this is that's really interesting, is to have that suppleness and that softness, right? And I think I've seen a lot of us avoid that because it's not thrilling. There's not like this charged energy. Um, and
Yeah.
right, like
Yeah.
it's like, oh well, this is kind of boring. If you want,
Yes.
like, you could even label it as boring, right? Not to put that label on it, because there's so much. I think there's a hesitancy to be that in the most intimate places, right, in our connection to ourselves and connection to another. So I mean, if I would, one thing we could do is to welcome that in, right? If we're in a place where we're not really connecting with that gentleness, is to have that place of gentleness and exploration, right? That suppleness. Um, it's something new that I've just been experimenting with. And it's opened up a lot of places that I've resisted, right?
Mm.
Because there's a power when you bring a lot of energy, right? A lot of energy to those intimate settings. You can burn out fast. You get tired. It's a different type. It can be beautiful and amazing, of course. But I think there's an invitation here to play in that gentleness, right? And there's something else that is coming through here. What are you feeling from this space?
Yeah, just that, like I hear a lot of, I just hear a lot of talk about like people wanting to step into gentleness. And I suppose part of this conversation for me is that sometimes the exact thing that we need to do to step deeper into gentleness is the exact opposite of what we think we need to do. And that might be connecting to the dark masculine. I feel like for a lot of people to be able to just like let go, because also like coming into, you were speaking about just getting tired. Did I hear that right? Like getting
Yes.
tired in that gentle space. And for me, what I hear then is that there's a real vulnerability that comes through, and vulnerability is quite taxing on the nervous system, because it's like we're really dancing that line of like, fuck, am I safe? Oh, am I safe? Am I not safe? And there can be this real like feeling and sensing like what's going on. And we can be right on that line of like sort of fight, flight, freeze response in that gentleness, vulnerability. So I've slightly lost my train of thought there, but for me, it's like, building that dark masculine aspect allows us to spend more time in the gentleness, in the suppleness, in a place of, is it parasympathetic? I think it is parasympathetic nerve response, where it's
Yes.
like we're shedding stress from our nervous system.
Yep, it's the same that we get like in yoga at the end in Shavasana, or in energy sessions, quantum, Reiki, whatever, like all these different places. So you touched on something really important there. And this is where I was sensing at the beginning. I couldn't quite put a label on it. or an idea or a formation. So that place of, it can be taxing to be gentle. It can be like the vulnerability can tax your system. It can send you into a trauma response. Am I safe? Am I safe? So that, because we're experimenting with something different, right? It's not the normal, but you spoke here to something about like, well, maybe that's the opposite. Maybe you actually do need a highly charged, like more,
like activated.
activated. So speak to that, because that's what I'm really curious about in this space that we're dancing with.
Yeah, beautiful. So what I was going to say just before that was that also just in regards to the gentleness of being taxing, that's also where people can, I know for myself, I've experienced this where it's like I've softened into a deeply gentle place, maybe deeper than I have before. And then shortly after the wall shut, and I actually move more into a hardness, and it's like everything snaps shut. It's like my system has just had enough. And that can be sort of like, I suppose one manifestation would be sort of like push pull in relationship. It's like opening, closing, opening, closing. So yeah, in terms of dark masculine, we like last conversation was a lot about the protector element, like the protector quality of the dark masculine. And that's really it. That's really it. It's like the ability to trust ourselves enough that we can soften, be deeply connected to ourselves, and know how and when to put in boundaries. We don't need to be watching all the time for the moment in which we need to put them in. I know for myself, when I've journeyed, like earlier when I was journeying with gentleness, I would almost have my finger on the button of when do I need to put in boundaries? Like I was really waiting. I was like, oh, how can I put in boundaries? And I was kind of, yeah, that was in my body. That was in my body part, maybe partly in my mind, but I had the finger on the trigger to put in the boundaries, because there was like this, I was afraid that if I softened too much, that I wouldn't be able to do that. I would just open the floodgates and someone could run amok. Yeah, is that landing? Is that making sense?
Oh my God, it's so powerful. Okay, so I am going to say that is the space right now that I'm dancing in. I am very soft and vulnerable and open. And I can see where that place of am I safe? Am I safe? And the like, oh, okay, do I want to put that boundary down? When do I want to put that boundary? What is that boundary? What is that? Right? Because I think when we go, oh, this is so good. When we go into the places of being soft and supple and vulnerable, we can be met with rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that's a place where that can be rejection. Yeah, right? Like a deep sense of rejection. And I really attribute that to the masculine. The place of major growth is being able to accept rejection, move through that, find the value, the lesson of if it creates pain, right?
And not also, like for me, dark masculine as well is very discerning within that. It's like we can have an experience of rejection, but it's our choice whether or not we make that mean anything about ourselves or our worth. And for me, like that's part of the dark masculine. That's part of the protection for me, actually. It's like, well, I can discern. It's like, well, that actually doesn't mean anything about me personally and my inherent worth.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay.
That's another element. It's like, it's not just the physical, it's also the emotional. It's like we can discern, we have deeper discernment of, emotional challenges that come up, emotional situations, maybe projection or, something that could trigger or hurt us. Yeah.
So this is
If
really,
you're receiving a lot from this interview, write a review, leave a comment, reach out to either David or myself, and connect in this place of conversation. And I just welcome you to take a deeper step. Connect with David at thedarkmasculine.com, or you can connect with my upcoming website at katrinastar.com. That's with 2 R's. And my upcoming book, When Pain is Your Mistress, The Tendency for Codependency in High Achievers. We're going to be diving into the places of where it is that we block love in our life because we are beholden to the pain of the mistress. And with that, let's go deeper into this conversation with David. Check out our bios, follow, connect with us. We're here to support this place of authentic, real conversations. Thank you for joining us here in this space today.
so this is really interesting because right now in what we're discussing here, I think is so important because there is that place of, okay, I can see that softness and gentleness that I've been experiencing with a partner. It's really interesting because I've not experienced that before. My system is not used to that. It's very different. And then there was a place where there was some, it could be perceived as rejection, but then it's like, it's actually maybe a trauma response from the other person, right? Where they're responding to something that has nothing to do with me being soft and supple and gentle,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. It might have nothing to do, like, and it's pretty likely that it has nothing to do with you.
Yep.
Like, but we make things mean so much about ourselves. It'll be interesting to see where this goes, but I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's been having a challenging relationship with this woman that he's kind of been seeing, and she's kind of moving in and out, and it's just not a really healthy environment. She's saying very conflicting things to him. And my feedback to him was to stop listening to the words that she's saying and listen deeper than that. And listen deeper, like listen to yourself first and foremost, and listen to what is true for you. And if everyone, it might seem like, oh, that's a weird thing to say, don't listen to her. But by not listening to her and feeling himself, and feeling what's true and what's arising for him, and feeling like listening deeper than he can hear her much more clearly. He can actually hear her rather than maybe what her mind or her ego is saying. You can actually feel what's happening in the field. And I know for myself, I've done that heaps of times where I've become mesmerized or entranced or lost in what someone else is saying. And it's actually taken me away from my own truth of the situation, but also the truth of the situation. I don't know if you've had this before where it's like someone has said something. Yeah, someone said something. You're like, oh, that doesn't feel true to me. Or in a relation, like, I'm just reflecting back on a relationship a relationship I had in the past where like I knew something to be true, but I listened so much to what was happening and what she was speaking. And like that relationship should have completed in about, I don't know, 2 months, but we stayed together for a year and we both knew the same thing to be true. We just didn't listen.
So that's exactly what it is. I'm feeling that place of what's coming through here for all of us is that place of this softness and this simpleness and this gentleness is actually an invitation for us to just listen, to like really drop in, right? And be able to connect with that place of listening and not like, oh my gosh, like listening to the higher selves or the places of our higher self, like really just taking a step back and listening, opening up. I mean, I think that is one of the most extremely beautiful things about the masculine is the capacity to listen.
Mm. Mm. And not just listen. This was actually one of the conversations that I had with him as well, was that he laughed because he's like, you said that so clearly of like, stop listening to her. And he's like, you said that so clearly. And it's the opposite from what's often spoken about like the sort of, for me, it's like the light masculine quality of holding space for the feminine to express. And there's a paradox. It's like by not doing that, we hold a deeper space where we can actually hear and feel what's arising. Like we can start listening. We mentioned the senses. We can start listening more to the senses and our own senses and feel what's happening rather than what we're hearing just through our ears or what we're hearing just through our mind. And tying back to boundaries and to that softening into gentleness, when we're connected to the senses, it's like communication is only words are only such a small band of communication. Like part of this is like listening deeper than just the words. Someone can say something, someone can say anything, but what's actually happening? And I feel like that happens a lot with abuse situations, is that maybe someone says you are safe, but your entire body is telling you it's not safe. What are you going to listen to? You're going to listen to someone else, or you're going to listen to yourself. And even if inside of yourself, that might be something that comes from a trauma response in the past, by building that current of trusting yourself to be able to put in boundaries and go, I don't feel safe right now, that's also healing it. So it's like, I feel like we can become obsessed with, oh, this is a trauma response, I need to not do that. But perhaps actually feeling that and kind of what's the language? It's almost by following that feeling, if I don't feel safe in this situation, perhaps that's exactly what you need to do to actually heal that response.
Okay, so right there, that
there was a
deep
lot there.
so that deep listening to self, that deep listening to your body, the deep listening that's not about listening to someone's words, but it's the listening that goes beyond just hearing what someone is saying. So, but that following, I really want to, like, that is so important. As you were saying that, my whole body was just like softening. So following that place of feeling not safe, right? Help where you just ended. Let's really nail that.
Can you phrase that in a different way? Which parts?
That place of where you said, that place of where you don't feel safe, and then you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna like not do that. I'm not gonna be in that situation. I'm gonna put a boundary, right? But instead, it's an invitation to like really allow it to process, to come through. And are you like saying in the place of inviting that in and really examining it?
Yeah, great question. So like it's very hard to go like black and white, but yeah, certainly, like if there's a fear response coming up, like certainly exploring that in some way. What I was speaking to is that sometimes it can just be healthy to go, I don't feel safe. Like if we're not feeling safe, just putting a pause on things, and
it can be healthy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
For sure. And it's like, rather than going, oh, this is just my trauma response, I need to just ignore that and I need to keep on leaning in. That's telling you something regardless. And by listening to that, what I'm speaking now is kind of a different flavor to what I was saying when I was speaking before, but it's, that this helps to build on it. It's like just listening to our own, what's arising in ourselves. So if there's this feeling of I'm not safe, listening to that, is that coming from a more of a trauma space? Is that something that's true and real in this situation? Is it a mixture of both? And not like accepting ourselves, basically. It's like not beating ourselves up for having that response and trying to make it different, because by listening to it, that's how the healing happens. And I suppose what I was saying was that might look like putting in a boundary then and just saying, I just need a moment to feel what's going on and to feel deeper into the truth of what's happening. Is this purely a trauma response? Is this actually the truth of what's happening? But even if it is the trauma response, maybe it is just putting in a boundary and just going like, my system is full right now. I just need to take a moment. And that could be the boundary. And that can help with the healing as well. Does that help?
That's perfect. Yes. I was just really wanting to get really clear for all of us here of understanding that. And as you were speaking to that, I really do believe right now we are being called to be more gentle and more compassionate and loving towards ourselves, and to be able to experience new things in relating with others. To be open to a brand new type of interaction, to like expand what we've been used to or comfortable with, but I mean in like a real honest way of different, like, and so I really want to kind of like, as we're coming to kind of a close here, I want to like address this place of where we're talking about like being that soft and supple, but maybe the actual thing that you need is like really charged, activated places, because then that can actually help make you feel a little bit more safe.
Yes.
To then go into maybe some more of the open vulnerability place. So you think you need that soft suppleness, but in actuality, maybe it's some play. If we're talking about intimacy, dom submission, sub dom dynamic, in order to really like set in these strong foundations to let that suppleness and that softness open.
Yes. Yeah, I see it just as you were talking. I was seeing this almost like this scale. It's like gentleness being on one side, and then that's sort of like the dark masculine, really strong qualities on the other side. And it's like as we stretch out one side, the other side also has scope to stretch.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it could be like really stepping into like the full, just almost like violent expression in a safe space,
Yes.
Exploring like the real end of the scope, like violent rage, anger, like really experiencing like the fuck no around boundaries and pushing that right out in a safe space. And then like, because that just gives more range for you to kind of play in and meet and calibrate to what's happening.
Oh, I am like so grateful for this conversation and what is happening here, because so in this gentleness that I've been experiencing with a partner, in this gentleness, it's a very different place that I have not experienced before. It's not activated, it's not charged. It's a very gentle, but in this place, I kid you not, I finally was able to touch rage, that rage for a trauma that I had when I was 5 of sexual abuse trauma. And I was able to touch rage. Like for 3 years, I've been in gratitude that I finally figured it out, that it's all, like, oh yes, the one thing that I've been trying to figure out. My system, my body finally figured it out. But what I noticed is that I've touched anger like 2 minutes, like it was just like pure rage. And I had not touched that before. So I think, and in touching that, now I'm also seeing the dynamic where there's this strong, like, presence from another person that's very like, just, dominating, like very, like, so it's like this, like in this bandwidth, we're allowing kind of the central nervous system to expand, I guess, with these experiences that are different, right? Yes. That allows us to open up to this rage, this anger in a very healthy way. That's
Yes.
not derailing. It doesn't like, I mean, I touched it for 2 minutes and then I was like, okay, great. Thanks.
Mm,
Like, you know,
mm, yeah.
I'm
I
sure
was
there'll be more unfoldings, but like it was really powerful. And that's a place I had not touched before.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like when, yeah, as we start to soften and relax, we're talking about that so many people avoid that space. And when we're in that space of stillness and emptiness and gentleness, that's when a lot of emotions can arise that have been hidden underneath the surface. So it's like we can go into that gentleness and then the complete opposite polarity can come through of maybe anger and rage around a situation. Then on the flip side, when we have like full strong anger rage like expression sessions, what often happens after that is the deepest gentleness and the deepest letting go. It's like after exercising your hardest, then the drop and the relax afterwards. Yeah.
I think we're so used to that as humans, right? We're so used to like, all right, just like, you know, like I had my kickboxing thing. I had all these places of like, okay, I charged, activated, gonna like just, knock it out and then have that peaceful. But I haven't come at a situation in this
Mm,
place where it's like I'm going in with gentleness and that supple and that softness. And yet that is what allowed me to touch the thing that I haven't been able to touch.
yeah, totally. Totally. It's such an interesting world. Like another core thing here for me is just like we can see this world as so one dimensional or so linear, and actually things are like incredibly like the paradox is real. The paradox is so real. It's like, yeah, soften more into gentleness, work more with like your strength and power and like, yeah, dark masculine qualities. It's funny. It's really funny.
I am so grateful for what we touched on. So would you like the places of the dark masculine being soft and supple, like allowing that and knowing that that can be from that place, right? That's
Mm,
what we're
mm,
speaking, right? I
yes.
just really
Yeah.
want people to land this, that we're actually speaking to the place that the dark masculine is soft, supple, gentle, right?
Yes. And also like that's sort of like a mature expression of the wholeness of that archetype, but sometimes to get there we do need to stretch out and explore the ends of the spectrum. um I feel like a lot of people can want to move to that place of, yeah, cool, dark masculine is gentle, I'm just going to be really gentle. It's like, well, is that actually dark masculine sort of like embodiment? If you're still avoiding those outer reaches, then there's not that groundedness and embodiment isn't in its fullness of what it could be for you or for someone.
And as I'm like, and when you're speaking that, if there's places of rigidity, like that's a great way to that right there
Yeah.
is enough of a sign to say, yeah, that gentleness and that suppleness. If you are in that spaces, then when you have rigidity still, and there's not places of, that's a telltale sign right there, right?
Yes. 100%. 100%. Yeah.
And when we're talking about rigidity, what does rigidity mean to you, David?
What does it mean? Yeah, it just means anywhere that we're holding. Like I feel like it can come in different forms. It could be something that we're repressing or rejecting. It could be something that we can't, that we have a reaction to. Like really, like looking at reaction, or like sort of suppression. Do we suppress that? Do we not see it? Are we not able to listen to other people? Like there can be so many different forms. It could even just be rigidity in the body as well. Maybe you're super tight and rigid, and there's sort of energy in the body that's stuck or whatever. Yeah, there's so many different manifestations of it.
I love this. I do want to state something really beautiful as you're sharing that. Like one example that I have that just came up in my own life. Um, I've recently gone through a divorce, and I'm like, the last 3 years, I'm like, I'm never getting married again, right? Like never, right? The
Mm,
word never. And I just realized I had some really powerful realizations, and it's going into my book that I'm writing. But like, yes, that place of the never, right, is that rigidity. That's the
yes.
rigidity that I was holding on to. So it's an invitation for us, even as if we're single, to say, well, I'm, or even if you're married, like all these different places in relating, like where's the rigidity that we have in the labels that we give ourselves of how we
Mm,
think these dynamics are. And it's an invitation to find that softness and supple gentleness.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it can be a hard thing to
Yes.
step out of rigidity because yeah, it's our survival, like our mind can associate survival with rigidity. Even like simple things of it might like our survival could be attached to our opinions or thoughts about a particular thing, whether or not that's like a political thing, whether or not that's something so super simple as I don't know, some silly little fact about an animal or about the world or whatever. It's like, yeah.
I love this conversation. I'm really grateful, David, for the place that we explored today. Is there any last pieces here that you would like to just close with?
I feel like everything's I feel like we've covered a lot. I feel like we've covered it a lot again. Yeah, I feel really great about what we've explored. I suppose the biggest thing is like this conversation we started with gentleness and that's been weaved through. Um, my yeah, just the message would be um, I encourage people to explore the opposite end. It's like, yeah, we do want to be gentle um, and be calibrated to our own environment. And also just inviting, and this might sound quite strong, but don't use that as a hall pass to ignore the uncomfortable parts within yourself, because exploring those will help you to deepen more fully into that. Because any part that our psyche or our any part that we're trying to push away from or reject or not look at, that's a form a form of rigidity, which is the like essentially the opposite of gentleness and softening. Yeah, so yeah, use this as an invitation to explore gentleness, to explore all the polarities. And yeah, that's my message for completion.
David, I am feeling that deeply, that place of what we just illuminated. Um, I think that we can feel it. I can feel it. I feel a deep sense of gratitude for your presence here today and your voice. And as you were speaking for this place, when I really connected with the dark masculine, it was very visceral, very activated, very strong, very like just I'm fucking here, right?
Mhm.
Like I am here, and let your softness unfold, right? But so I really think that we touched on so many different things here, and it's so important to understand that gentleness, because I hadn't seen this before really in this way, the way that we talked about it. I think it's really important, and I'm open to more of these conversations with you, because this was really, I've been looking for that strong, just dominant, like that place, right? Like, what is that, right?
Mm, mm,
And in a way, my access point to access even more was through this place of a different experience of gentleness.
mm. Beautiful. Yeah, yeah. I'm excited to see what comes forward because yeah, certainly there's so much resonance whenever we're talking. So yeah, excited to see what comes forward and how this lands as well.
And you have your amazing website now that you have launched, thedarkmasculine.com. You bring so much to offer, and I am excited to see how this unfolds. David, it really is an honor. You're a rare being that is willing to have this type of conversation with me, and I am really grateful.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So appreciative. It feels like just such a pleasure to be able to have the conversations that we have, and just to feel the flow in them as well, and to feel the resonance in them. Yeah, it's been quite a few times where we've messaged and we've just been in the same journeying similar things in different ways, like the same core message is there. So thank you. Thanks for having me on.
I'm grateful, David. And for all of you who've been listening to the podcast, subscribe, share, really put this message out there. And I look forward to the next time, David. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you.